Good morning. It is 7:42 a.m. on Thursday, July 2nd, 2020. I'm Christiana Ellis and I just got up. This is 5 more minutes. Actually been up a little bit, not too long. Rocket did let me sleep a bit later today, which is nice. Uh, I posted a fun photo on Twitter yesterday just to highlight kind of what I've been talking about here, where uh, Rocket would wake me up early and then forestall any attempts to go back to bed. And then later in the day, I see he's asleep across the room, and I think, here's my opportunity. But if I get up and go to bed, he'll wake up and not want me to go to bed. So I just surreptitiously turned the volume down on the TV, laid down on the couch, and attempted to take a nap, only moments later to find Rocket jumping up on the couch on top of me to investigate this strange behavior. He's a good boy. So other than that, let me just briefly talk about The Last of Us Part 2 now that I have finished it. No spoilers. Although to some extent, some of what I have to say will necessarily lack explanatory detail in order to avoid spoilers. But I feel like it's a reasonable sacrifice, so to speak. I've been talking a lot about it because it is a capital I important game. And also because it was a game I was looking forward to. I really enjoyed the first one. I played it, twice. And it's high. It's like a prestige production. It's very high production value and all of that. And so it's a relevant game. It's a big seller selling millions of copies. And so now I have finished it. And what I'll say is that I'm very ambivalent about it because there are a lot of things that it does extremely well. In terms of just like the gameplay, the AI of the enemies and of companion characters, the environmental design. There's just so much that this game does that's just really incredible. And even the storytelling in terms of creating these compelling characters that I care about, and interesting dialogue, and it's notable too that this is it's an inclusive game in the sense that it has characters of a variety of different races and sexual orientations, etc. And it also has, frankly, groundbreaking accessibility tools, making it easier for people, with disabilities, or just anyone who has trouble with any particular type of piece of the video game. Has a variety of little sliders and adjustment settings that allow a much larger number of people to be able to play, and that's also admirable. It does so many things so well that it's just that much more frustrating to me that I feel like the story they tell is, I don't want to say it's upsetting, like, oh, it's just sad or something. Like, that's not even what I mean. I mean, I don't like it. And I think there's a difference between a sad story that can still be really good and a story that you don't like. And it's not even just a matter of, like, the thing is, even though the story makes decisions that I did not enjoy, to the point where there were sections of the game that I would call profoundly unfun, because it's not even just a matter of like, oh, this is frustrating, this is hard, I'm getting getting angry because I can't beat this guy or something like that. Like that happens all the time in lots of games. That's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about here is are sections of the game where it's literally like, this is making me unhappy. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm mad at the game for requiring this of me in order to continue playing the story. And again, it's like, it's not the difficulty. I could turn the difficulty down if that was the problem. Frankly, it's not that hard in my personal estimation. Obviously, as I was just talking about the accessibility tools, that is a highly subjective thing. I did not find it that difficult, and that's not what I'm talking about. But it's just there's parts of the story where I feel like I don't want to do this. And yet, I don't have a choice. The game is designed so that if I want to see the whole story, I have to do it. And some of those are pretty, like, I feel pretty strongly about it. And it's frustrating in that regard. But so, like, I don't like the story they chose to tell, but nonetheless, there are so many amazing things about other elements of the story that are incredible. Gameplay is incredible. Like, it may well be that, like, I'm sure there are lots of people who won't agree with me about the story, and they'll love it, and I will say that's great. I'm not happy that I didn't like it. I'm not telling other people that they shouldn't like it. But, Film Crit Hulk on his Patreon wrote a big long article about his problems with the game that are not 100% aligned with mine, but very similar. I feel like if you read that, you would understand. His article obviously involves spoilers. So I'm very ambivalent about the game because so much of what it does so well. And there are parts of the game that just reached these pinnacles of the video game experience that I was so happy with that, frankly, what it makes me want is, it's like, well, what if their game was more like that and less like the other stuff? Because they're it's like, I talked, this is, yeah. Anyway, it's what I talked about before, is that there are different modes that the gameplay is in various parts of the story in terms of what it is that you're doing at any given moment. And there are some of those that I liked much more than others. And even some, well, I'm just going on and on about this. This is going to be the last time I will talk about this unless there's some, like, startling news development or something about that. What I'll say about the game is incredibly well made in pretty much every category that you think of video game making involving. If you liked the first one, I think you should probably play this one, but people should go in. Like, I think this is a perfect illustration of, some of the folks at Naughty Dog came out in some of the pre-release and say some people aren't going to like it. Right. And I know now that what they're talking about is that they've made some storytelling decisions that are probably going to be polarizing. And I have come down on the decision, like, that it really didn't work for me in a pretty profound way. And it's so frustrating because I can't call the game bad. It's not. I thoroughly enjoyed huge parts of it. But the other parts that were bad enough for me that it really taints the whole experience. And so it's disappointing and frustrating. And yet, I'm not sorry I played it. I mean, what forced me through some of those sections where I was so unhappy with what was happening was really just so that I would be able to participate in discourse about the game, I would be able to talk about it, I would have seen it for myself. So I feel like there can be some value in that. But, there are lots of people out there talking about various sorts of content warnings, and, some of that can be a little spoilery, but also some of the stuff that's in this game could be really triggering if you hit it unexpectedly. So, you know, um, use your own discretion there. All right, so I'm not going to talk about Last of Us Part 2 anymore, and I hope you all have a great day, and I'll talk to you tomorrow for 5 more minutes.